The return. Captain Maya Chen stood motionless on the observation deck of the Terran Defense Fleet flagship Aegis, her breath caught in her throat. Through the reinforced viewport, against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms, hung an impossible sight: the research vessel Horizon, pristine and intact, as if it had never disappeared 75 years ago. "All scans confirm it's the Horizon, Captain," Lieutenant Raj Singh reported, his voice betraying the disbelief they all felt. "Hull markings, registration codes, they all match the records." Maya nodded silently, her dark eyes never leaving the vessel. The Horizon had vanished during humanity's first deep space expedition beyond the Kuiper Belt, taking with it 38 of Earth's brightest minds and most advanced technology. For decades, theories abounded: alien abduction, catastrophic engine failure, or simply lost in the vast emptiness of space. Now it had reappeared without warning in Jupiter's orbit, broadcasting on frequencies that hadn't been used since before Maya was born. "Any response to our hails?" she asked, finally turning to face her communications officer. "Nothing standard, Captain," replied Lieutenant Tilia Reeves, her fingers dancing across her console. "But we're receiving something. It's not any communication protocol I recognize. The pattern is organic, almost like brainwaves." A chill ran down Maya's spine. Something was deeply wrong. The Horizon shouldn't be here, not looking factory new after 75 years in deep space. And its crew, they would be long dead, or at minimum, ancient. "Prepare a boarding team," Maya ordered. "Full containment protocols. I want biosuits, weapons locked but charged, and continuous neural monitoring. We don't know what we're dealing with." Captain, her XO, Commander Jackson Wells, stepped forward. "Regulations state that you should remain on the Aegis while—" "I'm aware of regulations, Commander," Maya cut him off, already moving toward the exit. "But that ship has been missing since before any of us were born. Whatever's on board just rewrote everything we thought we knew about physics. I need to see it with my own eyes." 30 minutes later, Maya led a team of 6 specialists through the airlock connecting their shuttle to the Horizon. The ship's life support was functioning perfectly, another impossibility. But protocol demanded full containment. The gentle hum of the ship's systems filled her ears as their boots touched down on the immaculate deck. "Power readings are off the charts," murmured Dr. Elena Volkov, their physicist, staring at her scanner in disbelief. "But it's not any energy signature I've ever seen. It's like the laws of thermodynamics don't apply here." The corridors were pristine. No dust, no signs of age or wear. It was as if time had simply stopped for the Horizon, while the rest of the universe moved on. They made their way toward the bridge, passing laboratories and living quarters that looked recently inhabited. "Captain," Sergeant Diaz called from a crew quarters doorway. "You need to see this." Inside, personal effects were arranged neatly: photographs, books, small mementos from Earth. A half-finished cup of coffee sat on a desk, the liquid still steaming. "That's impossible," breathed Elena. "That coffee should be 75 years old." Before Maya could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Captain Chen." A calm voice addressed her by name, though they had made no introductions. "We've been expecting you. Please join us on the bridge." The team exchanged glances. Maya nodded, her hand resting on her sidearm as they continued forward. The bridge doors slid open silently, revealing a scene both familiar and utterly alien. The layout was standard for a research vessel of its era, but the displays showed information in formats Maya had never seen before: 3-dimensional projections of data that twisted and flowed like living things. And the crew, 7 of them, sat at various stations, all wearing the faded uniforms of the original expedition. But something was wrong. Their movements were too fluid, too precise. And their eyes. "Welcome aboard the Horizon, Captain," said a man who rose from the command chair. According to the mission records, this was Captain Elijah Ward, who should be over 100 years old if he were still alive. The man before her looked barely 40. Captain Ward, Maya acknowledged, keeping her voice steady. You've been missing for 75 years. Would you care to explain how you and your crew appear not to have aged a day, or how your ship is in perfect condition? Ward smiled, but the expression didn't quite reach his eyes. Eyes that seemed to shimmer with an internal light that was distinctly inhuman. Time is more flexible than humanity has understood, he said. Where we went, what we experienced, it would be impossible to fully explain with your current scientific framework. Try me, Maya challenged, noticing that her team had instinctively spread out, hands close to their weapons. Ward gestured to a view screen where a three-dimensional model of space appeared, then folded in on itself in ways that should have been impossible. We discovered a region where our universe overlaps with another, he explained. A dimensional fold that allowed us to step sideways from conventional reality. For us, only a few months have passed. But we've learned things, Captain. We've evolved. As if to demonstrate, Ward raised his hand, and a sphere of light formed above his palm. Pure energy that coalesced into a miniature solar system, planets orbiting in perfect harmony. Maya's security officer drew his weapon, but before he could aim, the gun simply disassembled itself in his hands, components floating harmlessly in the air before reassembling on a nearby console. We mean no harm, Ward said as the officer backed away in shock. We've come back because humanity needs what we've discovered. And what exactly is that? Maya asked, fighting to keep her composure. A new understanding of reality itself, and technology that will change everything. Ward gestured, and a section of the floor became transparent, revealing the engine room below. Where the conventional fusion reactor should have been sat something else entirely, a pulsing core of light that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process. It twisted in on itself, its geometry defying explanation. Our drive doesn't move this ship through space, said a woman Maya recognized as Dr. Sarah Nakamura, the expedition's lead physicist. It moves space around the ship. But that's just the beginning. Elena stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would be beyond anything humanity can generate, Sarah finished for her, unless you tap directly into the quantum substrate of reality itself. Maya studied the crew carefully. Something about them felt wrong. Not hostile, exactly, but fundamentally changed. What happened to you out there? We met someone, Ward said simply. An intelligence that exists between dimensions. They showed us things, changed us so we could understand. They? Maya pressed. The architects, Ward replied. That's the closest translation we could manage. They've been watching humanity for millennia, waiting for us to reach a certain threshold of development. And now they want. What exactly? To help us. Humanity is about to face its greatest challenge, Captain. Ward's expression grew grave. In fact, it's already begun. Did you think our reappearance here was random? We arrived precisely when we needed to. Before Maya could demand clarification, alarms blared across both ships. Her communicator crackled with Commander Wells' urgent voice. Captain, we're detecting massive energy distortions throughout the solar system. Something's happening to Saturn's rings. They're disappearing. And we're picking up signals, thousands of them, approaching from somewhere we can't pinpoint. Ward looked at Maya with those unsettling, luminous eyes. They're coming. The ones the architects warned us about. That's why we're here, why we were given this technology, to help humanity fight what's coming. What is coming? Maya demanded, a sense of dread washing over her. A species that consumes reality itself, Ward said softly. They exist partially outside our dimension, which is why conventional sensors can't properly detect them. They've destroyed hundreds of civilizations across multiple realities, and now they found us. The view screen shifted to show Saturn, its majestic rings unraveling like thread being pulled from a garment. As they watched, strange geometries began to form in the space around the gas giant, shapes that hurt the eye to look upon directly. We have very little time, Ward said, turning to face Maya fully. The question is, Captain Chen, do you trust us enough to let us help? Because without what we've brought back, Earth doesn't stand a chance. Maya looked at the changed humans before her, at the impossible technology surrounding them, and at the approaching threat that defied explanation. Everything in her training told her to retreat, to quarantine the Horizon and its crew until they could be thoroughly examined. But the alarm in Wells' voice, and the certainty in Ward's eyes, "Show me exactly what we're facing," she said finally, "and then tell me how we fight it." Ward nodded gravely and gestured to the view screen. The image zoomed out to show the entire solar system, where dozens of spatial distortions were now forming, each one a wound in reality through which something was beginning to emerge. "They don't have a name in any human language," Ward explained. "They exist to consume. First energy, then matter, then the very fabric of space-time itself. They've sensed our development, particularly our first experiments with faster-than-light communication. It drew their attention." "How do we stop them?" Maya asked, watching as the distortions grew larger. In response, Ward nodded to Dr. Nakamura, who brought up schematics for the Horizon's modified systems. "We can adapt your ships with scaled-down versions of our dimensional drive," she explained. "It won't give them full interdimensional capabilities, but it will allow them to perceive and interact with the invaders." "And weapons." Maya's military mind was already working on strategy. "Conventional weapons are useless," Ward said. "But we've developed something else." He gestured, and another crew member brought forward what looked like a small crystal sphere. "This creates a localized dimensional inversion. It essentially turns their nature against them, collapsing their partial existence in our reality." Maya studied the device skeptically. "You're asking me to equip the entire defense fleet with untested alien technology, based solely on your word?" "Not solely our word," Ward replied. He tapped a command into the console, and a new image appeared, a recording from the Horizon's journey. The footage showed the ship approaching what looked like an ordinary star system, until space itself seemed to tear open. Through the rift came undulating shapes of darkness and light intertwined, moving with predatory intent toward populated worlds. Then, smaller rifts opened as vessels similar to the modified Horizon emerged, engaging the invaders with weapons that bent light and space. This was the Proxima Centauri system, in another dimensional layer, Ward explained. The architects helped that version of humanity repel the first wave. But they couldn't save everyone. Over 5 billion lives lost before they contained the breach. Maya watched the footage in horror as entire planets were wrapped in distortions, their surfaces crumbling into nothingness. "We have the advantage of forewarning," Ward continued. "But we need to act now. The dimensional incursion has already begun." Maya's communicator chimed again. "Captain." Wells' voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "We're getting reports from Earth. Massive power outages, gravitational anomalies, and people are disappearing, Maya. Just vanishing into thin air." Maya closed her eyes briefly, weighing her options, opening them. She fixed Ward with a steady gaze. "If this is a deception, you should know that I'll find a way to end you, no matter what you've become." Ward nodded solemnly. "I would expect nothing less. But we're still human, Captain. Change, evolved perhaps, but we still serve humanity. We've seen what happens if we fail." "Then let's make sure we don't," Maya said, making her decision. "Commander Wells, recall all available Terran Defense Fleet vessels to Jupiter orbit immediately. Priority Alpha. And clear all communication channels to Earth Command. We need to prepare for war." As she gave the orders, Maya watched the modified engine pulsing below, its impossible geometry somehow beautiful in its alienness. Humanity was about to face something beyond their comprehension, with only the changed crew of the Horizon to guide them. She hoped it would be enough. The reckoning. 8 hours after the Horizon's return, Earth was in chaos. The dimensional breaches had spread throughout the solar system, manifesting as swirling vortices of impossible colors that hurt the human eye to observe directly. Reports flooded in from across the planet. Strange gravitational anomalies causing tidal disruptions, electromagnetic interference disabling power grids, and most terrifying, people simply vanishing when the spatial distortions passed through populated areas. In the command center aboard the Aegis, now positioned protectively between Earth and the largest cluster of breaches, Captain Maya Chen observed the holographic display of the solar system with growing dread. The Terran Defense Fleet had recalled all available ships, 43 vessels ranging from small patrol craft to the 3 massive dreadnoughts that served as humanity's last line of defense. It wasn't enough. Not against an enemy that could tear holes in reality itself. Status on the retrofits, she demanded, turning to Commander Wells. The Horizon's crew has transmitted schematics for the dimensional drive modifications, he replied, swiping through reports on his tablet. Engineering teams are working around the clock, but they're saying it could take days to implement the changes across the fleet. We don't have days, Maya said grimly, watching as another breach formed near Mars. Tell them they have hours. The retrofitting had begun with the Aegis itself. Dr. Nakamura and a team from the Horizon had brought aboard several components of their mysterious drive technology, integrating them into the flagship's systems. Already, the ship's sensors could better detect the invaders, revealing them to be vast, lattice-like entities of dark energy that existed partially in higher dimensions. Conventional weapons passed harmlessly through them, as ineffective as shooting at shadows. The door to the command center slid open, and Captain Ward entered, accompanied by 2 of his crew members. Though they wore standard Terran uniforms now, they remained distinctly other. Something in their movements, in the subtle luminescence of their eyes, marked them as changed. Earth Command is still debating whether to trust us, Ward said without preamble. Half their leadership wants to quarantine the Horizon and study our technology before deploying it. They don't understand the time frame we're working with. Maya nodded grimly. She'd spent the last 3 hours in tense video conferences with Earth's Security Council, trying to convey the urgency of the situation. Some had been convinced by the evidence of the attacks already underway. Others suspected the Horizon itself might be responsible, its altered crew potentially compromised by unknown alien influences. I've authorized the retrofits regardless, she told him. As ranking officer in the field, I have emergency authority. But we need more than just modified sensors and drives. We need a way to close those breaches. Ward exchanged glances with his companions. That's why we came to see you. Dr. Nakamura has finished analyzing the largest breach near Saturn. We believe we can do more than just close it. We can use it. He gestured, and one of his crew members, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair who had been introduced as Dr. Keller, the expedition's xenobiologist, activated a small device. A 3-dimensional projection appeared in the center of the command center, showing Saturn's disintegrating rings feeding into a massive dimensional rift. The invaders, we call them phages, use these breaches as conduits between dimensional layers, Keller explained, her voice carrying the same unsettling harmonic quality as all the Horizon's crew. But the conduits work both ways. We can reverse the polarity, creating a repulsive effect that will drive them back. And seal the breaches behind them? Maya asked. Ward shook his head. Not exactly. Once established, these dimensional tiers don't fully heal, but we can collapse them to a size that renders them harmless. Pinpricks in reality rather than gaping wounds. That still leaves us with dozens of potential entry points for future incursions, Commander Wells pointed out. Which is why humanity will need permanent defenses, Ward agreed. Sentinel stations at each breach point, equipped with our technology. A dimensional defense network. Maya studied the projection, watching the simulation of the proposed countermeasure. You're talking about committing to a technology we barely understand, that came from entities we've never met, delivered by a crew that has been fundamentally changed. Yes, Ward said simply. Because the alternative is extinction. Before Maya could respond, the tactical officer called out, "Captain, multiple breaches opening near Earth orbit. They're larger than anything we've seen so far." The main view screen shifted to show Earth from orbit. Around the planet, space itself seemed to fold inward, creating massive tears in reality through which darkness poured like liquid shadow. The effect was horrifying, like watching the fabric of existence being rent apart by clawing hands. "They're accelerating their incursion," Ward said, his voice tight. "They must have sensed our countermeasures." "Fleet status," Maya demanded. 23 ships have received partial retrofits, Wells reported. But only the Aegis and the dreadnought Solaris have the dimensional weapons installed. Maya's mind raced. 2 ships against an enemy that could tear apart planets. What about the Horizon itself? "Our drive is fully operational," Ward confirmed. "But the Horizon is a research vessel, not a warship. We have the technology but lack the power systems and structural reinforcement to effectively deploy weapons at scale." "Then we need to combine our strengths," Maya decided. "Wells, order the Solaris to take defensive position at Earth. The Aegis and the Horizon will engage the primary breach at Saturn." "Captain," Wells protested, "that's the largest incursion point. The 2 ships won't be enough tow." "We're not going to fight it," Maya interrupted. "We're going to do what Captain Ward suggested, reverse it. Use their own pathway against them." Ward's eyes widened slightly as he understood her plan. "You want to create a dimensional backflow. Force the phages back through their own breach, and then collapse it behind them. Can it be done?" Ward exchanged looks with Dr. Nakamura, who had just entered the command center. "Theoretically, yes, but it would require precisely aligning both ships' dimensional drives and channeling an enormous amount of energy. The stress on both vessels would be extreme." "Worse than what will happen if we do nothing?" Maya challenged. A ghost of a smile touched Ward's lips. "No, not worse than that." "Then that's our plan. Commander Wells, you'll take command of the Aegis and coordinate with the rest of the fleet to protect Earth. I'll join Captain Ward on the Horizon." Wells looked like he wanted to object but nodded stiffly. "Yes, Captain." As preparations began, Maya took a moment to study the view screen showing the Earth, her home, now surrounded by wounds in reality. Billions of lives depended on technology they didn't understand, brought by people who were no longer entirely human. "You're placing a great deal of trust in us," Ward said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "I'm out of alternatives," Maya replied honestly. "But I want to understand. What exactly did these architects do to you and your crew?" Ward considered the question carefully. "They showed us that reality is more malleable than we ever imagined, that consciousness itself can shape the universe around it. And then they expanded us. Our minds, our perceptions. We can see beyond the limitations of 3-dimensional space now, experience time differently. Are you still human?" The question had been haunting Maya since she first saw those luminous eyes. "We're what humanity could become," Ward answered. "Not better, not worse. Just more. The next step in our evolution, accelerated by necessity." Maya nodded slowly. "And after this is over, if we survive, we share what we've learned. Not just the technology, but the understanding behind it. Humanity stands at a crossroads, Captain. We can remain as we are, isolated, vulnerable to threats we can barely comprehend, or we can grow, become something greater. That's not your decision to make for our entire species," Maya pointed out. "No," Ward agreed. "It's yours, and others like you. We're just messengers. The choice will always belong to humanity." 3 hours later, the Horizon and the Aegis positioned themselves at the massive breach near Saturn. The gas giant's rings had been completely consumed now, their matter converted into energy that fed the growing dimensional tear. Through it, they could see the phages clearly, vast lattice-like structures of dark energy, hundreds of kilometers across, moving with predatory purpose toward the inner solar system. On the Horizon's bridge, Maya watched as the crew made final preparations. Dr. Nakamura stood before the modified engine controls, her hands moving through holographic interfaces with inhuman precision. "The dimensional drive is at full capacity," she reported, "but we'll need to channel additional power to create the reversal effect." "Take whatever you need," Ward authorized. "Divert from life support if necessary." Maya's communicator chimed. "Captain Chen," Wells' voice came through. "The Aegis is in position. Our drive is synchronized with the Horizons." "Stand by, Commander," Maya replied. She turned to Ward. "What happens when we activate the drives?" "The combined field should create a dimensional inversion," he explained, "like turning a glove inside out. The breach will briefly expand, then collapse inward, pulling the phages back with it." "And if it doesn't work?" Ward met her gaze steadily. "Then we'll have given the rest of the fleet time to complete their retrofits. Every minute we buy could save millions." Maya nodded. "Let's do it." Ward gave the order, and Dr. Nakamura activated the sequence. Immediately, Maya felt a strange sensation, as if gravity itself was uncertain which way to pull. The view screen showed the space around both ships beginning to distort, ripples of energy flowing from the modified drives toward the massive breach. "Field integrity holding," Nakamura reported. "Beginning Phase 2. The Horizon shuddered violently. On the screen, Maya watched as the dimensional tear began to pulse, its edges fluctuating wildly. The phages nearest to it seemed to sense the change, their lattice structures contorting in what might have been alarm. "They're resisting," Ward observed tensely. "Increase power to the field generators." Warning indicators flashed across the bridge as the ship's systems strained under the unprecedented energy load. Maya braced herself against a console as the deck plating vibrated beneath her feet. "The breach is starting to invert," Nakamura announced, "but we need more power to complete the process. Aegis reports structural integrity at 60% and falling." Came Wells' strained voice over the comms. "We can't sustain this much longer." Maya looked at Ward, who was studying the readings with intensity. "We're so close," he murmured. "Just need to push a little harder." A decision crystallized in Maya's mind. "Commander Wells, redirect all power from the Aegis's weapons systems to your dimensional drive. Then prepare to withdraw to safe distance on my mark." "Captain." Wells sounded confused. "Do it, Commander. That's an order." As the Aegis complied, Ward turned to Maya with dawning realization. "You're planning to use just the Horizon to complete the inversion. Your ship has the more advanced drive," Maya said simply, "and the Aegis needs to survive to defend Earth if this fails. The strain will tear the Horizon apart," Ward warned. "None of us will survive." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Your crew has already cheated death once, Captain. Mine haven't had that luxury." Before Ward could object further, the ship lurched violently. On the view screen, the breach had begun to fold inward, its edges curling like burning paper. The nearest phages were being dragged toward it, their vast structures stretching and distorting as they fought against the pull. "It's working," Nakamura called out, her voice tight with effort as she manipulated the energy flows. "But the drive can't sustain this level of output." Maya activated her communicator. "Commander Wells, withdraw now. Get the Aegis to safe distance." "Captain." Wells began to protest. "That's an order, Commander. The fleet needs you. Earth needs you." A pause then. "Acknowledged. Aegis withdrawing." "Good luck, Captain." As the Aegis pulled away, the strain on the Horizon increased exponentially. Warning sirens blared as systems began to fail across the ship. The view of the breach showed it continuing to collapse inward, pulling more and more phages back through the dimensional tear. "Structural integrity at 30%, reported one of the Horizon's crew. "Drive containment failing." Ward moved to Maya's side. "There's another option," he said urgently. "The architects gave us more than just technology. They showed us how consciousness itself can influence dimensional stability." What are you suggesting? We can use ourselves, our expanded awareness, to stabilize the breach collapse, but it would mean connecting with the ship's systems directly. Maya looked at him skeptically. You want to interface your minds with the ship. It's how we navigated between dimensions before, Ward explained. But with the drive at these power levels, the neural load would be. He hesitated. Significant. Fatal, you mean, Maya surmised. Ward nodded gravely. For ordinary humans, yes. For us, our altered physiology might survive. Might. Maya considered the options. The horizon was already coming apart around them. Without intervention, they would all die in minutes, and the breach would remain open. Do it, she decided. Ward nodded to his crew, who moved to various stations around the bridge. Each placed their hands on specially modified interfaces, their eyes taking on that unsettling luminescent quality. What do you need me to do? Maya asked. Ward hesitated. Nothing. You should get to an escape pod. Someone needs to tell Earth what happened here. Maya shook her head. I'm staying. This is my mission too. Ward studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then stand with me. Bear witness. As the Horizon's crew connected with the ship's systems, the effect was immediate and astonishing. The failing lights stabilized, and the structural groaning subsided. On the view screen, the breach collapse accelerated, its edges folding inward with increasing speed. The phages fought desperately against the pull, their vast forms stretching and tearing as the dimensional current dragged them backward. One by one, they were pulled through the shrinking tear, back to whatever dark between space they had come from. Maya watched in awe as the bridge around her transformed. The conventional displays and controls gave way to flowing, organic interfaces that responded directly to the crew's thoughts. The ship itself seemed to come alive, its very structure shifting and adapting to channel the enormous energies being manipulated. Ward stood at the center of it all, his eyes now blazing with inner light, his body seeming to exist in multiple places simultaneously as he coordinated the effort. Blood trickled from his nose and ears, but he showed no signs of pain. The breach is almost closed, he announced, his voice resonating with harmonic overtones. But the ship can't hold together much longer. The deck beneath them shuddered violently. Through the viewport, Maya could see pieces of the Horizon's outer hull breaking away, vaporized by the energies being channeled through the vessel. You should go, Ward told her, his voice strained. We can maintain the collapse long enough for you to reach an escape pod. Maya shook her head. I told you, I'm staying. To the end. A ghost of a smile touched Ward's lips. Then watch closely, Captain. What you're about to see is humanity's future. The 7 crew members of the Horizon began to transform. Their bodies became translucent, suffused with the same energy that powered the dimensional drive. The boundaries between them and the ship, between matter and energy, between thought and reality, seemed to dissolve. The breach continued to shrink, collapsing inward until only a pinpoint remained, a tiny scar in the fabric of space where the massive tear had been. The last of the phages disappeared through it, banished back to their own dimension. And then, with a final surge of power that sent cascading failures throughout the ship, the breach sealed completely. The effort cost the last of the Horizon's structural integrity. The ship began to break apart around them, systems failing catastrophically as the dimensional energies they had channeled tore through the vessel's frame. Maya braced for death, but instead felt a strange sensation, as if she were being enfolded in a protective bubble. Around her, the bridge disintegrated, but she remained untouched. Ward and his crew, now barely recognizable as human, surrounded her with a field of energy that defied explanation. What you've seen today, Ward's voice came to her, though his lips no longer moved, is just the beginning. The architects aren't just allies. They're what awaits us, what we can become. Why me? Maya asked. Why save me? Because someone must tell the story, came the response. Someone must guide humanity through what comes next. The phages will return. This was only their first attempt. Earth needs to be ready. As the horizon finally surrendered to the forces tearing it apart, Maya felt herself being shifted, not transported, exactly, but moved between the layers of reality that Ward had described. For a brief, incredible moment, she glimpsed what the Horizon's crew had become. Beings of pure consciousness and energy, no longer bound by physical form, existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously. And beyond them, she sensed something else. Vast, ancient intelligences watching from the spaces between realities. The architects, not gods, not quite, but so far beyond human understanding that the distinction hardly mattered. Then she was elsewhere, floating in an escape pod just beyond the debris field that had once been the horizon. Through the viewport, she could see the Aegis approaching cautiously, its sensors scanning for survivors. Maya touched her hand to the cold glass, looking out at the stars beyond. The dimensional breach was gone. The phages vanished, for now. But the universe she had known was forever changed. The boundaries between dimensions had been revealed as permeable, reality itself shown to be far more complex than humanity had ever imagined. And somewhere out there, Captain Elijah Ward and his crew continued to exist, not human anymore, but not entirely other. Pioneers of a new frontier that had nothing to do with physical space and everything to do with the nature of existence itself. As the Aegis's tractor beam locked onto her escape pod, Maya composed herself. She had a report to make, a story to tell, and a future to help shape. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe, and soon they wouldn't be the same.